1966, Professor Quigley wrote a book entitled Tragedy and Hope, A History of the World in Our Time, in which, in 1,348 pages, he outlined the entire history of modern times and the secret society which had come to dominate the American government. The book was published by Milner Company. In fact, it was so revealing that almost immediately the publishing house was bought up, and someone who worked for the new publisher destroyed the plates to the first half of Professor Quigley's book. If you doubt what I am telling you, we actually have a taped interview which I found in Professor Quigley's papers back at Georgetown University when I went through them back in 1980, and we offer that taped interview with Professor Quigley where he tells how somebody destroyed the plates, the first half of his book, and then how his publisher refused to reprint the book, even though there was demand from all over the world. That's available in our 4-tape set, The Secret Government, available from Radio Liberty by calling 1-800-5-HIV-WAR. Now, of course, the Council on Foreign Relations is not the only organization working behind the scenes to change America from a free society into a corporate socialist or fascist society. There are many organizations, and that story is told in our video entitled The Brotherhood of Darkness, and the true story of the murder behind the Orient Express, and of course is contained, at least the soundtrack, in our 4-tape set, Secret Societies. Ladies and gentlemen, America is in terrible trouble. Have you ever noticed it really doesn't seem to matter whether we have the Republicans or Democrats in control of Congress or in control of the White House? The same foreign and domestic policies continue. In fact, if you read Senator Barry Goldwater's book, With No Apologies, on page 279, he will tell you that, you know, since the late 1940s, shortly after the war, there have been 4 Republican presidents and 3 Democrat presidents, and he was, of course, taking us up till 1979 when his book was written. And he said, you know, other than the first 7 years of the Eisenhower administration, it didn't matter whether the Republicans or Democrats were in control of the White House because we had the same identical foreign policy. If you read Professor Quigley's book, Tragedy and Hope, A History of the World in Our Time, on page 1247 and 1248, he will tell you that what we really need are 2 political parties that are just the same, so we can vote the scoundrels out at any time, but nothing will change. The same foreign and domestic policies will continue. In fact, Professor Quigley, on page 324 of his book, Tragedy and Hope, the one where the pages, the plates, the first half of the book were actually destroyed by someone, and the publisher refused to ever reprint the book in its entirety. Professor Quigley tells us that the central banks of the world are working to create a feudal system by which they can control the governments, and then the governments will control the people of the world. The true objective of what's going on today is the establishment of a one world government, a new world economic order, and a new world spirituality. And behind everything that is transpiring today are dark and sinister spiritual forces. For indeed we are engaged in a spiritual battle. If you read Ephesians 6:12, you'll find this reference. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. Ladies and gentlemen, the forces which control the Council on Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission and the Bilderbergers and the Masonic Movement and the Skull and Bones Society and the Federal Reserve Board and the central banks of the world are joined together in a continuity of evil. There are dark and sinister spiritual forces in the world today. They have financed communism since its inception. They financed Adolf Hitler. They took us into a no-win war in Korea. They took us into a no-win war in Vietnam. And of course today they are building up the military potential of communist China. Will America survive as a free nation? Only if the people of this nation are willing to join together and become informed, become involved in the political process. First of all, to understand it's a spiritual battle, to come to understand why America was a great Christian nation at one time, and then how we lost that freedom. We are told by Abraham Lincoln And this is what he wrote back, or what he said back at the Lyceum in Springfield, Illinois, in about 1840. At what point should we expect the approach of danger? By what means should we fortify ourselves against it? Should we expect some transatlantic giant to step the ocean and crush us with a blow? Never. All the armies of Europe and Asia combined could never by force take a drink from the Ohio or make a mark on the Blue Ridge. Then at what point should we expect the approach of danger? And I answer, if it ever reaches, it must spring among us, it can never come from abroad. If destruction be our lot, we ourselves must be its authors and its finishers. As a nation of free men, we should live on through all time or die by suicide. And then let me close with that wonderful quotation from James Russell Lowell, written in 1844, and this is what he wrote. Once to every man and nation comes the moment to decide, in that strife of truth with falsehood for the good or evil side. Some great cause, God's new Messiah, offering each the bloom or blight, and the strife goes on forever, twixt the darkness and the light. Then to side with truth is noble, ere to share her wretched crust, ere her cause brings faith, fame, and fortune, and is 'tis prosperous to be just. Then it is the brave man chooses, while the coward stands aside, until the multitudes make virtue of the faith they have denied. Though the cause of evil prospers, yet his truth alone is strong. Though our portion be the scaffold, and upon the throne be wrong. But that scaffold sways the future, for in the dim unknown standeth God within the shadows, keeping watch above his own.